on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting. I also remind all present that the local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public for comments made during the meeting that are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. So with that, welcome again everybody, and we have apologies first, and Councillor White, you may need to leave for a short period of time. So that'll be noted. Are there any other apologies other than that? Probably Chair Leader, I suggest he's... So I'll move Chair Leader, second Councillor Winters. I'll put that all in favour, so aye, against carried. Public forum. There is no public forum. No one is requested as such. Items not on the agenda. There are no new items to be presented. Order of business. At this stage, we'll be sticking to our order of business. Are there any declarations of interest on any items on the agenda? Nope. Are there any items of business to be transferred into the open that are currently in public excluded elected members' one? Okay, so let's look at the minutes first, and we have the Risk and Assurance Committee minutes of Wednesday, the 25th of September, which are there. I had no corrections or queries. Do anybody else have any? No.
I'm happy to move.
Seconder. Thank you to Councillor White, and I'll second those. Put that on in favour, say aye. Against carried. Sorry, I should have also mentioned those elected members, non-committee members, you're more than welcome to participate in the conversation, but we just have to have the movers and seconders recommendation by committee members. Right, on to the reports, and the first report is a chairperson's report to be presented by Matt Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, everybody. So Chairperson's report covers the backward-looking and forward-looking agenda items for this committee. As we move into 2025, the last year of this triennium, I've just highlighted the first two meetings. There is a little bit of uncertainty over the content for the September meeting currently scheduled. It will depend on audit timelines being the end of triennium, so I'll maybe cover that in the future meeting, in our March meeting, the actual agenda items for the September meeting, and we may have a bit more certainty on the audit programme for the 24-25 financial year. So yeah, nothing else to add to the report, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Matt. Are there any questions, queries or commentary on those programmes? If not, move Councillor White, second Bruce Robertson. Put that all in favour, say aye. Aye. Against carried. Okay, we now welcome both Kamaran and Warren Gossett from Auditor General's Office Auditor General with regard to the completion of the report. Kamaran.
Kia ora, Chair and committee members. So as the Chair's highlighted, you have in front of you here as part of the agenda today the audit management report, which is the last step of the audit process for the 30 June 24 year. Essentially, just to note, I guess, in terms of the report, is the issues highlighted. There's 6 previous open issues, 1 new one, 1 closed, to give you a high-level overview of what the report entails. I'll take the rest of the report as read, and with the permission of the Chair, Warren Gossett, the Audit Manager from Audit New Zealand, is here to take any questions you may have on the report.
Councillor Winters.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. Just on page 33, matters raised in the audit plan, right down the bottom regarding valuations, it says, and I'll read it out, to avoid the risk of prior period errors, we recommend that revaluations are performed on year end. And that statement seems a bit impractical, because I would have thought the revaluations would have been done any time through the year, but they are signed off at the year's end. That's how most revaluations are done. But so I'm just wondering, is that the correct? It just doesn't seem practical to do it performed on year end?
I can comment on that through you, Mr. Chair. And to answer the question, yes, valuations are performed during the year.
Yep.
It can be performed at the first day of the beginning of the year or the last day of the financial year. Bob RC has a couple of asset classes that are valued at the 1st of July, so the beginning of the financial year, which is correct. That point there is just to highlight that the value of the asset classes on the 1st of July versus the previous year on the 30th of June is a 1 day difference, and there is a risk that on the 1st of July, if there is a material fair value adjustment on the 1st of July, it could indicate that the value at the 30th of June, the previous year, was potentially incorrect.
John, if I could just add my bit to that. I think we're both agreeing with what Warren is saying. I think that the point here is that the valuation, in effect, could be carried out physically at any time.
Anytime.
It's just that you're asking the valuer, and I think this is your point, Warren, we could ask the valuer to do it to date at 1 July, or we could ask them to date at 30 June.
Oh, right.
And I think Warren's argument is that to date at 30 June avoids a risk that if we get a valuation on the 1st of July, it's materially different from a fair value perspective to that which we have just reported on for 30 June.
Oh,
because if it's materially different,
yeah,
arguably we should revalue the prior year before we finalise the annual report. So avoid the challenge. Get the value to date at 30 June.
Right. Understand now.
Very pragmatic solution. I think that's fair to say, Warren. Yeah, brilliant.
I think we're all saying the same thing now. Yeah.
So, Kamara and Warren, we understand the new one, which I'm sure can be addressed quite quickly. The other 6 ones, some of them have completions. Are you satisfied that we've made as much progress as possible in last year's recommendations? And is there any loose ends or matters we still need to address?
Those items are part of our continuous improvement program, and so that's on the finance team's radar to continue to and the wider team in terms of focus for the next calendar year, the next financial year, to progress on that with the aim to try and close off as many as we can as part of the next audit process and report back to the committee this time next year in relation to how that's progressed, along with any new items that might have been raised by audit that needs to be addressed. So that's ongoing focus for us.
Are there any questions, other queries, Bruce?
Marin, I wonder if I could just follow up on that one. None of these are significant per se, but they're just untidy, if I could put it in that sense. So I hear your point, and a year is a long way away. Do you actually have any defined time to complete these matters prior to the full year is out?
So we'll aim to get through the majority of these where practical for the next financial year and keep the committee informed on that. It's just a question of where there's technical system elements that need to work through versus process. Where it's process, that's more practical for us to address. Where it's system related, it's obviously working with the vendors to get through those, which might take a little longer. So it's just working through the practicalities of that.
Be something like the untimely the title is untimely preparation of review and reconciliations, which I acknowledge you're saying they are getting better. Is that the sort of thing where you might have to look at system rather than just getting the process and doing it on the day?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Other questions, queries, or comments by elected members? If not, Warren, can you also pass on to Leon and your team our thanks for the collaboration effort on this. Leon did give his apology, otherwise engaged, but we do want to acknowledge that. It's been a relatively smooth audit, and so thank you for you and your teams working well with Kamaran and Noeline and the team. And as Matt said, we'll probably be quite ambitious next one. It would be really good to get it well down the track with the current council who are responsible for that year, rather than, a new council. So we look forward to that process as well. So with that, committee members will receive the report as per the recommendation. Happy to move that. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Bruce. And I'll put that. All in favour say aye. Against, carried. So the next item is the expenditure and kohara report for year end, 30 June 24. Kamaran, just present that.
Thank you, Chair. So this report is part of our reporting committee where we cover off supplier spend in excess of $50,000, COA expenditure and sensitive expenditure incurred by elected members and the leadership team as in response to an audit recommendation in prior years. So I'm happy to take that report as read and open to any questions from the committee members.
Okay, thank you. So committee members and other elected members, do you have any questions or queries? There's a number of pages here that you might want to have some questions about, either directly or indirectly offline. Councillor Scott.
Yes, got a couple of questions, Kamaran. One is about our redactions policy. So some of the redactions appear that maybe, I think, has got the right reason. It might be because you can identify the particular transaction, but there's one or two there that I wonder about. And I think I sent an email. Have you got any comments on our policy on redactions?
For the Chair, the methodology applied in making redactions is to protect so it's privacy reasons for individual identities. So those individuals are redacted. And that's the filter that's applied for the purposes of the report.
One of the redactions is a company. What is that? How does that fit into that?
I'm not sure if Noeline can comment on that.
If I can have the example, councillor, then I can look into that one, but it should only be individuals.
Okay. Well, obviously we're in open now, so I don't want
Absolutely.
to.
Absolutely.
So we'll cover it when we're in the close. Second one I have is that one of the people we spend, or one of the entities we spend some that we pay is the director was also a recipient of a scholarship. What's our policy in making sure that the transparency was available to the people who were deciding on the scholarship?
Morena, through you, Chair. So we're just making inquiries as to that specific example at the moment, but we do have a practice in terms of having contractors answer questions about whether or not they do have a conflict of interest when we engage them.
That information be available to the people making the decision?
Yes, that's part of the process. But that specific example, we can get some more detail on.
Thank you. Any more questions, queries? Bruce?
Yeah, thanks for this, Kamaran. Noting all three reports, but one of the interesting things, because I think it's certainly Council Stewart where I see such a list prepared, it does raise questions in my mind at hopefully a higher level, Kamaran, about our procurement approach and reflecting on the actual numbers. Has it given us cause or any reason to think through our procurement policies and strategies? I'm not saying it should have, by the way, but I'm asking in light of the fact that you've prepared this information, has it?
When looking at the level of spend, categories of suppliers, and the nature of spend, there's nothing that has drawn our attention to in terms of any deviation from policy that warrants attention at this stage. One's nodding, so I'm expecting that from her perspective as well, that she shares that perspective.
I was also thinking, I mean, procurement is one of our best ways to ensure efficiency as well as also effectiveness in terms of delivery. I'm thinking as much on the efficiency side. Have you had cause to think about that?
There's always room for improvement in that respect, and I think it's reflecting at the end of each year around on a global basis around the level of spend, the efficiency on spend, and seeing how that might feed into efficiencies around the application of the procurement policy for the year ahead. So that's something that will be part of our continuous improvement program.
We could also add to that the CEO works very diligently, and maybe Fiona, you might want to touch on what you are doing on an annual basis with regard to seeking out efficiencies and some examples possibly.
Yes, good morning, and I totally agree with the member in terms of his comment. This is a key focus for us, and there have been reports to this committee in terms of how we've sought to make efficiencies, particularly by reducing our spend on consultants and on contractors. So you'll recall recently reports, particularly from the legal services team, in terms of the significant savings made in that area. We do deliverability reviews by function, and as I can't use those words, as you might recall, now I try not to do that anymore. One of the things that we're looking at is it more cost effective to have staff as opposed to consultants or contractors? So examples we've given in the past are, for example, we have a small dive team, and that is a national team that works across New Zealand. If it was just for our purposes, it would have 3 staff members, but it has 4 because it provides services to all councils in New Zealand, and it's cost neutral to ratepayers. We have recently, in our rivers and drainage team, brought on 2 additional staff to limit the number of consultants and contractors. So these deliverability reviews we do by function to ensure that we're as efficient and effective as possible. And our focus for the last 2 years has really been looking hard at consultants and contractors in particular.
Councillor Scott.
There's one more, and it's around procurement as well, which is in the past we've spent quite a bit of council resources on economic development, and wonder what our policy is regarding, given that we're also interested in the efficiency, about contracting or inviting suppliers from our region ahead of other regions.
It's quite a big question, that one, because a number of the council decisions are all about economic development. And so particularly your decisions in terms of investing in infrastructure have historically been in terms of supporting regional economic development.
What brought it to mind was that one of the suppliers is based in Wellington, and I thought, well, why wouldn't there be a local supplier who does that sort of thing, for instance?
Oh, right. So we do have procurement strategies where we have guidelines in terms of looking for local suppliers where we can, but it'll depend on the expertise that we're after. Yeah. We have, in the last long-term plan, there has been reduced spending on economic development by this council. Yeah.
I think so. So what you're telling me is that we, as part of our process, we consider that in the procurement process. Yeah.
Through you, Chair. So under the New Zealand government procurement rules, we are prohibited from giving preferential treatment to local suppliers. So that's something we do need to consider because of our international trade obligations. However, awarding work to local suppliers is something that is given consideration in this sort of bigger, broader outcomes piece, along with other factors like environmental considerations, those sorts of things.
Thank you for that. Any other questions or queries on that? If not, we have a series of recommendations, starting on page 32 and then on to, sorry, it's on diligent, it's 48 and then 49. So I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any other discussion? If not, I'll put that. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. Right, the next one is the internal update and completed audits with Stephen, and we welcome to the team Clive Goff. Welcome, Clive. Great to have you here and all your amazing experience. So I don't know, Stephen or Matt, do you wish to introduce Clive further about where you've come from and et cetera, et cetera?
So through you, Chair, happy to take the report as read, and I will introduce Clive. So Clive has come to us, started last Tuesday, so he's been here just over a week. Ian comes with a wealth of experience both across New Zealand and Australia as an internal audit practitioner for a large number, through a consultancy firm, a large number of local government, central government, health, all sorts of different audits. Not necessarily councils, but a large range of audits across different sectors, both commercial and public sector. So yeah, we're very pleased to have Clive on board, and hopefully you guys interact with him well in these committee meetings as well. So yeah, happy to have Clive.
Okay, so let's look at the report, which is the work plan update. Many matters in progress, some complete, etc. Are there any questions or queries with regard to that program? And in particular, the report here with regard to the Science Management Framework Review, which was just recently completed as well. Mr. Robinson.
Stephen, I always appreciate this, and I did have a question around the Science Management Framework Review, which I fear to tread in because I'm not a scientist. Okay, I stress that greatly, but I'm an accountant, which probably means I could rule the world. I don't know. That's a joke. Good, yeah. Stephen, my question really was, perhaps I was just looking for something slightly more out of this review, and it may be that because there are no issues, it's not being mentioned. When I looked at the objective and the scope, it was the adequacy and effectiveness of the science function to ensure advice is provided in a sufficiently robust and controlled manner. So I took from this, we've got a great team of scientists. I don't doubt that. And you know, there are one or 2 points you've talked about, succession planning, all those sorts of things which are great to have. I was wondering whether the audit explored more, was it doing the right science?
So yes, as part of the review, the audit process went through all of those points in the objectives, including that point, to understand how the requests for science were made and how they analysed those to ensure that they were the right pieces of information. And then we only reported, like you say, on those areas where we found a few little small improvements to be made. So yeah, through that audit, we didn't find any issues with respect to that particular point, and so therefore we didn't raise any findings on that.
Great. So look, and let's put that in a positive phrase. I can take assurance in reading this report that we're comfortable organisationally that the work, you know, which will be extensive, done by the science group, is indeed the right work, and importantly feeds up and is available for good decision making around the table.
Yeah, correct. So as part of the review, we looked at how the requests come through with the various teams and how, you know, for the various other parts of the organisation, how they interact with the science department to make sure they are requesting and there is that synergy between what the science team is doing and what the rest of the organisation requires. So yeah, so you can take comfort from the fact that if it's part of the objective, we've gone through and examined that, and where there hasn't been any issues, we haven't obviously raised them. Potentially, we can look at maybe ways of giving that positive assurance in future reports. Hopefully Clive might have some recommendations in terms of how that can happen as well. So yeah, so if it hasn't been raised in the report, then it's because there's positive assurance that has taken place.
Brilliant. As a matter of methodology, I would like to see positive assurance, Stephen, as well as also the recommendations for improvement. But that's fine. Thank you for that. I'm comforted by what you said. Thanks, Stuart.
Any other questions, queries, or commentary on that internal audit report? If not, we have a recommendation to receive that on page 78. Thank you, Bruce. And second, Councillor Winters. There's no further discussion. I'll put that. All in favour, say aye. Against, carried. So that concludes the end of our open session. Now onto the public excluded session. So do we have